One of my favorite artists making music today is Alex G. I've been wanting to make a video essay to info dump about the brilliance of his many albums of material, both released and unreleased, to talk about what they've meant to me over the past 4 years of my life. God Save the Animals was one of the first albums that I can remember anticipating for months and listening to the day it came out. I remember going on a walk with headphones on when it was raining and being afraid that I was gonna get electrocuted because headphones in a thunderstorm. I am not a very intelligent person. Alex has a song off his first real studio album called The Same, and when I first heard it, I had some thoughts, but I want to read to you some of the lyrics. So the song goes, "I was a girl, the only kid in the world. I thought I knew what it meant to you, but I'm wrong. I'm not okay. I'll be downstairs. Let me do my hair and put my makeup on. It feels so wrong." And you say, "Rock on." Meaning someone else said rock on in response to their hair and makeup being done. Then Alex kind of screams, "I'm not the same." Everybody wants you. Everybody loves you. Your smile, your teeth, your hair. They don't know you're not there. Too slow, too late. You're never gonna make it. And then he repeats the mantra of otherness, the knowledge that deep down something isn't right. I'm not the same. If you clicked on this video, you already saw the title. I only saw the movie once so far, and that was in theaters. It was a fantastically twisted and deeply disturbing experience, filled with moments that will make the audience want to claw their skins off. I saw it complete in an art house theater with only like 2 other people who, after the credits rolled, exclaimed that they had no clue what it was that they'd just watched. This video is about I Saw the TV Glow, and if you like it, you should go to the theaters and watch the movie. Support the artist responsible for what I believe will be, for some people, a life-altering film about discovering something about yourself that you don't possess the language or understanding to articulate, but that the world around you tries to crush out of you. I Saw the TV Glow is a staying-of-age story about 2 queer kids who grow up trapped in multiple different ways, as you start to realize, who come to slowly understand each other through little interactions they have over the course of some 12 years. The first is Owen, a closeted trans kid going to Void High School, or VHS, very clever, who seems to have social anxiety and a lack of desire to engage in the world that they were born in. And Maddie, a girl with a scandalous secret and a strong affinity for a particular television show. Much of their initial bonding and later interactions hinge upon their shared obsessive love of this show, ominously titled The Pink Opaque. While both teens find a form of escape in their favorite show, Maddie decides that she's had enough of the world shutting her out and manages to escape for real. And she tries desperately to bring Owen with her, but Owen can't imagine a world where escape is possible. And no matter how hard she tries, Maddie can't get Owen to come with her. The movie's set in late 90s suburbia, and you can absolutely feel it. Everything drips with nostalgia for a time when the world wasn't dominated by computers. And nostalgia, funnily enough, is a major theme of this movie, although not in the way that I would have anticipated. Alex G made the soundtrack for I Saw the TV Glow, which is described by the director as a dark ambient post-rock guitar 90s TV theme electronic nightmare. According to the Washington Post, it's a surreal soundscape that casts a looming shadow over the suburbs that Owen and Maddie inhabit. But also, in my opinion, not enough people are commenting on the rest of the music, which is absolutely phenomenal. If you're not already aware of the band Sloppy Jane, sorry about that terrible band name, go listen to their music now, you loser. And that band actually makes an appearance in the movie with goddamn motherfucking Phoebe Bridgers, whose inclusion makes sense as she used to be a part of Sloppy Jane, but that scene and seeing her in that scene was so completely and utterly shocking to me. They show up on a stage in a dive bar in this darkly stylish scene that is reminiscent of Twin Peaks, and if left to my own devices, half of this video would be references to David Lynch's filmography. However, I will refrain from being too much of a dork. The sound design and setting are great, but the cinematography, holy shit, man. The world of this film feels split into 2 parts. The first being childhood, and the second being everything that comes later. When Owen is a child, the world is hazy but electric, being lit by faint neon blues and purples, often with a bit of staticky grain over the top. The world is quiet with implied evil, but still colorfully immensely interesting. At this point in the movie, Owen is scared and fairly unsafe. The world that these characters inhabit is monstrous, and they are looking for some way, any way to get out. This part of the film and later flashbacks to this time are thick with implied tension, but it's a very familiar one. You've felt it, I've felt it. Even if you're older, you can likely still remember it. It's magical, but slightly foreboding. And the aesthetic work done fits this feeling to a T. However, later in the movie, as Owen grows up and Maddie ends up leaving, the world actually gets darker, as though the life is being slowly drained out of it. The world's malice is less subtle and more in your face. Where there was once color, now only static remains. There's a deep loneliness that settles over the world. But somehow now Owen is safe. Nothing's coming to get you. There are no monsters under your bed. Your family is nothing but indifferent. This idea is incredibly important. And the writer did such a fantastic job of conveying this that I'm still kind of just taken aback by how brilliant it all was. Over the course of the story, Owen stops questioning. All of that tension that I was talking about earlier gets channeled into the show that they never stop loving, The Pink Opaque. Owen stops trying to understand anything and instead fades quietly into the background, slowly becoming one of the least compelling protagonists I have ever seen in any movie. They learn that by being invisible, they will be safe. As the light goes out of their eyes and their mouth struggles to even squeak anything out, the mystery dies. And with it, their very soul. This film is mesmerizing and terrifying, but not in any normal, conventional way. There's a comfort that Owen finds in the darkness, and an intimacy that we share with the crackle and glow of the television. Okay, before I get into any of the heavy stuff, really quickly, I just want to gush about one of my absolute favorite parts of this movie, the actual show within the film, The Pink Opaque. It's just such a good idea, and it hits me really hard because I can think of like 10 shows off the top of my head that fit the criteria of a kid's show that was darker than it should have been, which was so cool that I got obsessed over it for years of my life and still can't believe that it even existed.
G.I. Joe,
Star Wars, the
OG
Wars,
Transformers,
Gravity Falls,
fucking My Little Pony!
I realized that those are mostly cartoons. I think they were all cartoons. But just Gravity Falls, all by itself, is a fantastic example of the type of thing that The Pink Opaque is set up to be. Episodic yet overreaching storyline, childish but intelligently dark and funny, a scary Monster of the Week setup for many of the plots, kids and teenagers going on adventures and discovering that there was something special about them. There's this scene early in the film when Owen and Maddie are talking about The Pink Opaque, and Maddie's like, gushing about it, and Owen just says, "Isn't that a kid's show, though?" And then she responds super defensively and kind of aggressively, and she's like, "No, the themes it covers are too complex, and the monsters are way too scary for kids. It's too dark." And I have a confession to make. Remember how like 2 seconds ago I was singing the praises of Gravity Falls, a children's cartoon? Well, I wasn't allowed to watch it when I was a kid. Same with a lot of the other shows that I just mentioned. I had an interesting upbringing, one of the few interesting things about me. I was pretty sheltered by fairly conservative and like religious parents until around 14 or 15 years old when I started needing to use the internet for school. Up until that point, I had no access to the internet and I didn't really have a lot of friends. So when I got interested in Gravity Falls and decided to watch the whole thing years after it aired, I was 18. And for a few months, I was obsessed. And I very distinctly remember this idea that I had to defend my decision to watch it. It wasn't for me. I'm too old to be watching that. Even though I wasn't allowed to when I was younger, and even though in my opinion it's not even really that much of a kid's show. For example, there's an episode in the second season where the two main sibling characters discover that there's a strange cult called the Society of the Blind Eye hiding in Gravity Falls. And as they uncover the mystery surrounding the cult, they realize more and more that half of the town are members. These are reoccurring characters that have often otherwise been fairly normal throughout the show. But now we get this horrifying realization that they've been actively working against the protagonist the entire time. There's a crazed old man who assists the protagonist often and has small moments of brilliance, but ultimately is a broken character who's lost his sanity. Why is this relevant? Well, you want to know what the Society of the Blind Eye actually does? They have this, I don't know, Men in Black reference gun that erases people's memories. And the old man used it so often on himself that it ruined his mind and memory completely. Then the big twist later is that the said man is the inventor of the memory gun and he used to be a brilliant scientist. It's not a goddamn kids show. Sure, it has the elements of one, but it's so much more. Honestly, I should make a video just about that someday. Through that one episode, we learn that the townsfolk who keep denying the twins' experiences with the paranormal have also brushed against it from time to time. They just don't remember anymore. Their eyes go dead with a lack of recognition. The Pink Opaque is a show about teenagers Isabel and Tara who meet at a summer camp and discover that they have transcendent psychic... The Pink Opaque is a show about teenagers Isabel and Tara who meet at a summer camp and discover that they have a transcendent psychic connection. Then after they go back home, they use their powers to fight evil lurking throughout the world. While there are different monsters the kids fight every week, there's also a big bad or main villain found in a character called Mr. Melancholy, who manifests as this horrifying face in the moon, and he dwells in the midnight realm where time moves uncannily fast, kind of like Narnia. The show ran for 5 seasons before ending on a cliffhanger where Isabella and Tara reunite at the camp that they first met at because their psychic connection alerted them to this idea that something's wrong in the world. I've only seen the movie once so far, so I could be misremembering, but I believe one of them gets kidnapped by that man in the moon character, Mr. Melancholy, and is buried underground after being fed poisonous Luna juice. What is Luna juice, you might ask? And my response would be to read a book, you ignorant vulture. The Pink Opaque draws parallels between itself and the main plot of the movie. And I'm going to say something that might be a little bit controversial here. Throughout the movie, as I'll explain in greater detail later, Owen has experiences that feel ripped out of the show. Then later, Maddie expresses similar experiences that are even more intense, and she tries to convince us that those experiences were 100% real. For a while after leaving the theater, I initially interpreted the film as being just a bunch of metaphor and allegory, and on a certain level, it kind of is. But what I think a lot of critics have gotten wrong about this film is that the metaphor is only for us in the audience. It's not tongue-in-cheek at all for the characters. When we see supernatural stuff happening in the movie, it's really happening. There is also a fuck ton of inherent meaning to it, but it's real, it's tangible. In fact, to these kids, it's almost more real than real life. There's a simultaneous critique and respect for nostalgia here, and it's beautiful and intensely scary. I love stuff like this. The whole concept of the show within the film is so satisfying to me that I can barely articulate it. So let's instead talk a bit about Owen and their relationship to the world around them. Owen's mom, Brenda, shelters and tries to protect them despite not really understanding what's wrong. Her son is antisocial, even from a young age, and as time goes on, they withdraw further and further, eventually not even talking to her. She's the only source of human comfort, and her warm embrace seems to calm them down when her husband Frank starts being a dick. Now, Frank is an interesting character. He only shows up like 3 times total, and if I'm remembering correctly, has 1 line of dialogue, but every time he's on screen, I want to violently shake him. Frank's relationship to his son is an implied one that is a story told through silent, judging stares and glances. Quite frankly, he comes to hate his son. His frame looms over the story like a menacing shadow. It's like a struggle for him to even speak. He's so filled up with hatred. There's one scene where Owen is finally starting to figure out what's wrong with the world around them, and Frank forcibly holds Owen's head underwater and washes them as they're vomiting. There's one scene when Owen's a little older and they're all heading home at night. Frank is driving, but strangely, Brenda is in the back seat with Owen, their head resting in her lap. Owen mumbles something to Mom, asking, can he maybe stay up past curfew to watch his favorite show, The Pink Opaque? Then she looks to Frank for help. It's important to keep in mind at this point in the movie, I think Owen's a teenager. So lying in Mom's lap, the fact there's an early bedtime, the way they weekly ask for permission to watch what is essentially a children's show, it's all showing us, the audience, a lot about the situation. Frank hesitates and draws out the moment till he finally glances back and says his single line of dialogue. Isn't that a show for girls? Instantly, Owen looks away in shame as Brenda just quietly says, not tonight. It's a fantastic scene, dripping with subtext that shows us a lot of useful information about Owen's family dynamics. The dad is kind of weirded out by them, and it only gets worse as the story progresses until it's like complete disgust. There's a shot way later in the movie when Owen comes into the house and we just see Frank staring, slack-jawed like some sort of monster. It's terrifying. Meanwhile, Owen's mother is the protector, and though she doesn't really seem to understand what's going on with Owen either, she still tries to be a shield. Even in this scene when she immediately backs down from confrontation, she's trying to keep Owen safe by not even engaging with Frank. The tension is horrible, but it's so good. The actual dialogue in this movie is sparse until the third act, but the amount of information and story beats and dynamics and character that the director conveys through little things is fucking incredible. But for those who don't have a degree in dork, it's a fairly simple concept. Movies are a visual medium, which makes the possibilities vastly different than what we get with books or songs or paintings. Everything is moving and visual. The language of film is one where the audience is given information through moving pictures. It can be tacky to then waste your precious screen time having characters written to boringly tell us a bunch of expository nonsense that's crucial to understanding the plot, but given in a way that's empty of all the life it could have had. And the solution is to give us information through showing and not telling. Imagine if at the end of Planet of the Apes, a character just says, "Oh, by the way, this place was once called Earth." Anywhere near as impactful as seeing the Statue of Liberty at the end as George Taylor collapses to his knees and curses humanity for their hubris? This is a rhetorical question. Jane Schoenbrunn, the director of I Saw the TV Glow, uses every tool at their disposal to tip off the audience to the world that they've built, so kudos to them. Owen hasn't found their place in the world, mainly because they're being actively pushed out of it for reasons that they can't even fathom. Owen and Maddie have this in common, but they react to it very differently. Where Owen is reserved, Maddie is outgoing, outspoken, and openly tough, although it's fairly obvious that there's a softer side as well in quieter moments. She encourages Owen and tries to do everything that she can to help, including one crucial moment when she tells them never to apologize.
Sorry. Don't apologize.
Sadly, this is all in vain. You remember how I said Maddie has a scandalous secret? She's a lesbian, and her identity shapes how the world treats her. Remember, it's the 90s, and people aren't as understanding as they are now. Oh. For the first years of their relationship, her only connection to Owen is leaving taped recordings of random episodes of The Pink Opaque for Owen to find and escape in. But after a while, they talk again, and she starts getting more comfortable, till the point where she opens up about her experiences. Her best friend outed her to the school and betrayed her trust, leading to all the other kids and parents to ostracize her. And while this might seem like a bad thing, and it is, compare this to what Owen does with their secret. Maddie realizes that she's different and then confronts it head on. She doesn't fit in, and for a while she uses the show as a coping mechanism because the show seems to understand her. The girls in The Pink Opaque are different, and it gives them strength, but eventually she comes to the realization that she needs to escape for real. If she doesn't fit in here, maybe she will somewhere else. On the other hand, Owen is trans and deeply closeted without the ability or even desire to articulate it. She's trapped in a body that doesn't feel right, but the whole world is trying to crush her into a certain form, and she's just letting it. What's interesting about this movie is that unless you are trans yourself or just fairly discerning, it's possible you won't understand what's actually wrong or what's bothering Owen until the movie's nearly over. That means that we get to discover it along with her, which I find fascinating. A lot of reviews addressing this movie seem to skip this part entirely, or just point to some vague sense that something felt inherently wrong. I saw one Twitter user describe the film in a way I liked, as bottling up gender dysphoria and simulating it in the audience. But through this journey of discovery, things start to get darker and more hideous as we slowly realize that Owen isn't gonna do anything about it, and actively tries to forget what's happening. You might have noticed throughout this video so far I was using they and them for Owen, but as I thought more about it, and even as I type this, except I won't be typing, I'll be recording. I hope we don't leave that in. As I thought about it more, I realized it's not even subtle, so it's she, her from now on. Sue me, you fucking liberal. A quick aside, it's a bit weird to me when people completely avoid discussing the trans identity inherent to this film. How many takes I saw on Twitter and TikTok just being like, oh, it's about how nostalgia is bad. How hard can you miss the point? It's so insanely obvious that I wonder if media literacy is even a concept people consider worth their time. Do you really need every element and theme explicitly spelled out for you in no uncertain terms, you fucking moron? I seriously wonder how much progress has actually been made when there's such antagonistic resistance to honestly engage with a movie that is very explicit in the implied meaning. In the first, 10 minutes, we're looking at Owen, who's standing underneath one of those big blanket tent things they had in elementary schools, but the colors are literally the trans flag. Later, Owen's walking home from the sleepover and shots are cut with shots of Isabel, the girl from the Pink Opaque, walking in the same place and smiling and laughing. Those in glass closets shouldn't throw whatever. So now we know that Owen is trans, Maddie's a lesbian, neither of them know how to deal with it. Maddie takes an active role and tries to run away and tries to get Owen to do it with her. But not only does Owen not go with her, she tattles like the snitch she is. I think this is important. Because while in every other aspect of the story, Owen is passive, when it comes to someone trying to pressure her to change, she immediately sells out her one friend. She's committed to staying in place and never changing or growing, always stunted and barely speaking, and the universe rewards her for it with relative safety and invisibility. But here's where things get interesting. Maddie does eventually leave, but years later she returns and takes Owen to a bar to explain something crucial. The town they live in and the very world they exist inside is the Midnight Realm from the Pink Opaque. And more importantly, Owen is Isabel. In the Pink Opaque's final episode before it went off the air, the girls get their hearts removed by Mr. Melancholy. They are fed the aforementioned Luna juice and then buried alive. There's this brilliant monologue given by Maddie where she explains how after she left home, the feelings of loneliness and isolation stayed with her for years until she paid a random guy to bury her alive. You know, like the character in the show. Maddie says that after she suffocated, she woke up as Tara, Isabel's counterpart in the show that felt so real to them. Seriously, the actor playing Maddie, Bridget Lundy Payne, I hope I'm pronouncing their name right, who is themselves non-binary in real life, does such a fucking incredible job on this monologue. It again feels straight out of a David Lynch movie. It's so well written and performed and weird and cool and abstract, and god damn it, man, then we switch back to Owen and Owen's still being a prick. The problem with Owen is not so much an actual problem, but more something that it's infuriating to see exposed in someone else. But unfortunately, I think it's something a lot of people, myself included, can relate to. She won't change. Not only does she not try, she actively goes against trying to fix things because it's safer in the short term not to. For her, it's confronting the truth about her gender, and this indecisiveness will metaphorically and literally kill her. Just rationalize your problems away and disassociate. Look the pain dead in the eyes and say to yourself, nope, I'm fine. There's no problem here. Well, the psychological consequences are not ones that I want to be held liable for, so let's move on. Really quickly, mood is so important to movies, and I know I already went over cinematography and music, but let's talk about them again, but together now. It's sickening how beautiful the hazy miasma is as we float down school halls and back alleys and stare at fish tanks and static television sets. There's this one scene where Owen slowly walks through the school with diary scribbles from Maddie detailing episodes of the show and doodles of characters and symbols flashing on screen as Carolyn Polachek's Starburned and Unkissed plays in the background, and the air is thick with tension and catharsis. I love it. I love practically everything about this movie. I think that the pacing suffered a little towards the start, and that combined with the ambiguous ending we'll discuss later make it a difficult one to really appreciate for the subtlety. But inside the whole thing, there's this beating heart of radiant sincerity. That is not only something I love, but also something I greatly respect from a director making movies during our current postmodern irony-drenched bullshit. Don't get me wrong though, I also love postmodern irony-drenched bullshit. And your arms look so fucking cute. They look like little cigarettes. That's actually my one complaint with the movie. There wasn't enough 100 gex. Let's talk about sex for a minute. I know, gross. But there's a scene that I think that some people are misinterpreting, and I want to hear opinions on it. In this scene, Maddie and Owen talk to each other about who they like in a sexual or romantic context, starting with Maddie making sure Owen's not just hanging out with her to get with her, but ending with Owen saying that she doesn't really like anyone. She likes TV shows. Harmless, right? I mean, someone in my theater laughed when this line dropped. But then Owen elaborates and says every time she thinks about that sort of thing, it feels like someone dug all her insides out with a shovel and she found there was nothing underneath. And when I tell you, the laughter stops so fast. Apart from just being a raw fucking line, a lot of people seem to be extrapolating from this that Owen is asexual. In the moment, I thought the same thing. But then a few minutes later, after the scene had time to sink in, my opinion started to change. I also talked to a few friends of mine to see if my new hypothesis could be accurate, and I want to know what you think. If a person is a woman trapped in a man's body, wouldn't that make the idea of having sex while being perceived as a man difficult, frightening, and dysphoria-causing? If you heard Owen say that line as an asexual and felt represented by that, all the power to you. My idea here is not to disparage that, but to shed light on another possible interpretation. I believe that Owen's romantic and sexual desires are intact, but greatly inhibited by the body that they were born in. Anyways, after Owen treats Maddie as though they're crazy, which I guess under the circumstances makes sense, Maddie pours her heart out even more and says that Owen has to bury herself alive. Then she'll emerge as Isabel in the next season of The Pink Opaque. And then they'll go on adventures together and finally find meaning and purpose. So yeah, again, Owen's response to this is fairly understandable. We're shown a lot of information here and it's out of order, but we go back and forth between past and present and are shown some interesting imagery, such as Maddie painting a ghost tattoo that the girls in The Pink Opaque have on Owen's neck in the most intimate, non-sexual scene I've seen in a movie in a long time. I felt uncomfortable watching it, as though I was intruding on something. This is a super important point in the movie, though. Throughout the film, Owen actively resists Maddie's attempts to help. For example, scrubbing themselves raw to get off the ghost tattoo. Owen doesn't end up going with Maddie to bury herself alive, so Maddie leaves, and Owen never sees her again. Owen expresses this lingering hope that Maddie will somehow return and forcibly push her underground, but it can't work like that. Owen has to accept herself and also want help, otherwise it'll never work. Nearly every decision Owen makes is passive. The lesson of taking an active role in one's own life is a difficult one to learn, and it's what I think that the director Jane is attempting to teach us through her film. Before Maddie leaves, everything in this movie is pretty dark, kinda. You know, it's a little bit disturbing, but after she's gone, shit hits the fan so fast, and we get like half an hour of the most gut-churning sequences I've maybe ever seen in a movie. You see, in the Midnight Realm, time moves faster. A metaphor for when you're so disassociated from your own life that you barely feel time passing at all because you're not really living. It's as though Owen has been wired into base survival mode forever. This leads to Owen moving fluidly through life as though she's going down the world's least fun water slide and rapidly aging until time finally passes her by, and she's fallen apart both inside and out. The distinct horror of being uncomfortable in your own skin to begin with, and then getting to watch yourself age without actually maturing at all. What we can all really learn from I Saw the TV Glow is that not transitioning cracks your lips like you wouldn't believe. There is a malice in nostalgia, as Owen just fixates on the one thing in her life that made her happy: The Pink Opaque. Back near the start, when Maddie runs away for the first time, she leaves behind nothing but her TV set burning in the yard. She understood the poison in rose-colored glasses and creating a fiction in your head of a better life that was magical and, most importantly, in the past that you can never return to. The best years behind you, all you can do is look back at them and sigh in fondness and jealousy. Owen doesn't really even seem to care that much about the pink opaque except for as a device to project herself onto. And there's this heartbreaking and weirdly relatable scene where Owen finds the pink opaque again as an adult and tries to watch it, only to find it cheap and childish. There's a shot where scrawled in chalk on the floor outside Owen's house are 4 words that encapsulate the film. There is still time. You see, despite the lies that nostalgia will tell you, even if the greatest years in the history of the known universe were 10 years ago, the best and most important time to be alive is always going to be right now. Now you have agency. Now things can change as a direct result of your actions. The past is the past, and you've got to go out and live your life. Enjoy the things you love, find people to spend time with, all that sappy stuff. Definitely don't spend your teenage years making YouTube videos. But Owen doesn't get it. She knows this isn't how life is supposed to feel, but she doesn't do anything with the information and is withering and dying just to feel safe in the environment they were raised in. Owen ends up staying at her parents' house long after they both have died, and the only big change we see as an audience is that she gets a bigger TV set. There's a part where Owen tells the audience she has a family now, but we don't ever see them, even when we're shown inside the house. Honestly, I almost don't believe Owen here. But even if this were true, the ramifications are zero, because the family doesn't matter. We watch Owen fall into all the trappings of a suburban life without ever really comprehending anything about themselves. Not just gender-wise, but also fucking anything else. She won't be saved. But imagine those quiet moments of regret. Imagine waiting around for the yearning to die down, but only feeling it twist the knife in deeper. Imagine trading your whole life for no alarms and no surprises. It's such a pretty house, such a pretty garden. I will now never reference Radiohead again, and I will issue a public apology for my crimes. Imagine compromising everything just because other people were a little uncomfortable. Repressing every element of what makes you, you, just so it's a little bit easier for the people who supposedly love you. If I may, and I'm not trying to be offensive here, but let me ask a question really quick. If they truly loved you, and I mean really loved you, would they still make you feel that way? Near the opening, Maddie asks Owen a question, one that I can pose to you. Do you ever feel like you're narrating your own life, watching it play out in front of you like an episode of television? If you remember, Maddie also told Owen never to apologize, and that's where the worst part of the movie comes in. Honestly, if you've made it this far, I want to warn you. This part is both a major spoiler and also incredibly depressing. It's not really possible for me to put any accurate trigger warning here because of how impossible to pin down the horror of these next few scenes are. So instead, I'm just putting this blanket thing here. If you're easily disturbed, you should stop watching. Owen is working at a laser tag arcade now, and she's gotten significantly older. She's finding it difficult to breathe and seems weak and frail. The arcade is a hellish sensory nightmare with flashing lights and dark rooms and loud noises everywhere, and Owen seems to be getting overwhelmed by it. We watch as a child plays that one arcade game where you stay in a booth and it blows fake money or tickets at your face. If you've ever seen one of those, do you remember there being like scrolling, flashing text over the top of it as well? It would say stuff like money, money, money in big flashing letters. So this whole scene is shot super up close to kind of simulate the claustrophobia that Owen is obviously feeling. But for a split second, the camera pans up and we see the words "You are dying" where that glowing text is supposed to be. There are countless clues that the world Owen inhabits literally is the Midnight Realm, but this is a fantastic example. Mr. Melancholy is taunting her and attempting to make her lose hope. And sadly, Owen does lose hope. In the most upsetting sequence in the movie, Owen is literally dying and unable to breathe or walk, just completely falling apart. And her coworkers have to come sing happy birthday for a little kid having a party at the arcade. How sweet, right? And during this celebration of the process of aging, Owen snaps and starts screaming at the top of her lungs, crying out for anyone to help her. She calls for mommy and cries and collapses to the ground. As soon as she starts screaming, the lights flicker out, and all of the coworkers and children stop moving or speaking, and they stay suspended there like mannequins or some vulturous dolls with dead eyes. All the while, Owen is having a panic attack and slowly crawling away to the bathroom. It's like the spell has been broken, and the simulation is malfunctioning. Then we get to the bathroom, and Owen takes out a blade and rips her shirt open to begin cutting her chest open. No blood, no gore, a clean cut into nothing. Then she stands up and smiles into a mirror as she opens herself up and sees TV static filling her insides up. And then there's nothing. Wait, what? Yeah. Owen starts to leave the building, and all of the people are back to moving and talking, and as she goes, she starts trying to apologize to each person she passes for her outburst. No one acknowledges her, no one even looks at her. Maddie told her never to apologize, and here, at the bitter end, she's still fucking apologizing to people who don't even care. Then the credits roll, and the three guys in my theater go, "What the fuck did we just watch?" I'm serious, the three people who were sitting right up at the front said those words aloud. Earlier in the movie, right after Maddie leaves, Owen narrates some of her life to us and has a very interesting line of dialogue. But some nights, when I was working late at the movie theater, I found myself wondering, what if she was right? What if I really was someone else? Someone beautiful and powerful, someone buried alive and suffocating to death very far away on the other side of the television screen. You want your movies to have a happy ending, right? But instead of giving us a happy ending, we're left on a horribly depressing note. Season 6 isn't gonna happen because the good girls lost. You see what I did there? Instead of saying good guys, I said good girls and accidentally on purpose played into somebody's kinks. We can maybe imagine that Owen saw who they really were in that static and later buried themselves alive. Hell, we're almost led to make that conclusion, but we don't get to see it, and for us, it doesn't matter. You're so uncomfortable in your own skin that now you want to claw it off. The ending is painfully sad, but it's also a lesson to the audience. Owen's parents died, Owen's friends left, the people around her just didn't give a shit. Even as much as they did give a shit, and even as much as that show was just a show for girls, the battle was over something so much bigger and more important and personal. Because ultimately, no one else knows where you're going, and if you have agency, you need to use it. If you feel lost, scattered, hopeless, helpless, don't give in. There is great power in this movie, and I hope that by watching it, you can find it. Because, let's be honest, if you're watching this video, I'm going to assume on some level you need it. I'm not sure how to end this video. I want to tell a joke or say something gross and shocking like I do in most of my videos, but unfortunately, I don't even feel like I can do this movie justice. So I'll leave you with a thought from the film's director, thank a couple people, and then see you in the next transmission. But this is an experience that I won't soon forget, and if you can see this in theaters or buy the movie when it comes out, whatever, you should do so. In a profile with The New Yorker I found on Wikipedia, Jane said that TV glows about something I think a lot of trans people understand. The tension between the space you exist within, which feels like a home, and the simultaneous terror and liberation of understanding that that space might not be able to hold you. I think many people, even if they are sympathetic to narratives of biological family estrangement, still want to believe in resolution or restorative reparation work. And I think that this does a disservice to queer people who are not in control of whether that work can be done. In essence, you can't wait for your friends or your family to understand you, because you might be running out of time. It's precious to you and important, and you don't owe them your patience and understanding and hand-holding them through everything, especially when they extend none of the same courtesy to you. What you do owe is it to yourself. You owe it to yourself and your well-being to self-actualize. And only then can you be free? They asked to remain anonymous, so it's kind of difficult to credit them properly, but really quickly I want to thank the 4 friends of mine who offered their perspectives and experiences to me while I was scripting this video. Thank you for answering questions that I had. It was super, super helpful. Y'all are cool as fuck. And thank you for watching this, by the way. I enjoy making video essays about media I'm obsessed with, so if you can stand my word vomit, then welcome in. I think we'll keep good company. If you stick around, one day I might make a video you like even more than this one. I have a feeling there might be some hateful comments under this video. After all, I recently made fun of an outspoken Nazi and got comments such as these. Oh my god. Why? No. You must have hate. What type of hate? I guess we figured out. He says I got everything in my video wrong. Then says read a little bit about this. And it's the Wikipedia page for brainwashing. You can't make this stuff up. So if you're able, let's drown out any sort of minefield by commenting cool stuff. The millionth person to comment gets $100 directly from me, so have fun. My girlfriend asked me to add a bit about color theory and how the director uses pink and blue in certain areas, especially parts where Owen kind of forces herself to be masked, but I forgot and am too tired of scripting to put it in. Huge thanks to y'all over on Patreon who lets me make videos like this. We are Legion. See you in another year. Here, life is beautiful. The girls are beautiful. Even the orchestra is beautiful. I would also like to thank by name Ray Wolf, Tom Dinder, Dave K, Elke, Pandora Z, Nude Rasmussen. I really hope I got that right this time. I'm sorry. George Wodika, and Joseph A. Miller. I just did a huge overhaul of my Patreon page. There's a bunch of new stuff that you get if you sign up for it. I kind of doubt anyone's gonna watch this video, so if you like the stuff that I make, please consider supporting me over there. It really, really helps. And honestly, just thank you for watching this. This was kind of a passion project of mine. It took quite a while to get out, and I'm pretty happy with it. The script was so long that a lot of the recording process, I just was reading the script. I probably won't do that again. Let me know if it was super off-putting. Apologies for that. But yeah, hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. See you around. We are Legion. Goodbye.